when you're talking to Ricky. Ricky was born and raised near Edenton, and near Newbern,
Hmm.
where catching and eating fresh fish and shellfish is what people do. After that, he served in the Army as a military cook. He then moved and graduated from the Culinary Institute of America, which is where the great chefs start out. But
Hello.
Ricky didn't leave it at that. He took off for Europe and worked in the
Hello.
restaurants for some of with and for some of the best chefs in the world. Today, he himself is one of the most widely admired chefs, at least in our region. Most seafood fanatics around here can tell you about the Saltbox Seafood Joints, or the two restaurants that Ricky owns and manages, and the great fresh seafood that he serves there. But not everybody knows that Ricky has written a book that is published by UNC Press, which has done very, very well, and was recently featured on North Carolina Book Watch, where I had the privilege of spending almost 30 minutes talking to
Yes.
him.
That was
Some of you know David Soselski is one of North Carolina's great food experts and cultural commentators. He thinks this cookbook is the finest seafood cookbook you've ever seen and probably ever will if you love the flavors of the North Carolina coast. Well, as I said, even though he can't see us, we can see you, Ricky, and you light up every room, kitchen, dining room, or TV studio that you visit.
Thank you so
I'm
much.
confident that after you share your story with us today, you'll leave this Zoom meeting all with a booming smile. Welcome, Ricky Moore.
Welcome, Ricky.
Thank you so much, Mr. DG. Man, that was pretty glowing there. Thank you so much for that intro. And like I said, my apologies for not having a visual for you. But first of all, thank you for having me. This is an honor and a privilege. I love to get outside of my element. And when I say that, I mean, obviously I spend a great amount of time in the kitchen, and I love the idea of being behind the stove. I love the idea of looking at fresh local fish that the fishermen bring me. I love the idea of taking a fish and butchering it all the way down. And every time I do it, I learn something new. I love those ideas. I love the idea that I can get on this social media platform and share with you, I guess, things that inspire me, the man that I am, from whence I came, what I'm thinking about now, the pandemic. I cannot speak about that. Okay, but as a DG said, I'm an Eastern North Carolina boy. Okay, my family in the immediate on Highway 70. Okay, my family came from Riverdale, which is sort of in between New Bern and Havelock. Okay, also have family in James City. Also have family in Harlow. DG reference David. Somewhere down the line, David and I are kin. And him and I met when I first opened up the original location, and we just immediately bonded because, his family and my family are from Harlow. And so we kept talking and having conversation, and, come to find out, somewhere down the line, we were kin. So it was a wonderful thing, a wonderful bonding session. But, did I want to be a chef as a child? No. Here's what happened. Here's what was the sort of the blueprint for me. I grew up in a family with a lot of good cooks. Okay, I grew up in a family that worked hard. I grew up in a family that gathered together a lot. I had two wonderful grandmothers who, in my mind, I always reference them as developing my palate as a cook. Okay, because I believe the first thing that a good cook should have is the ability to taste things well, and also to be able to season things well, and also understand, throughout that process, seasonality. Because I grew up in a rural part, so there was a garden that was tended, there was a chicken coop, there was a smokehouse. Okay, and seafood was not a commercial activity. We didn't make a living from that. That was to put supper on the table. So, we went out crabbing, we fished with a bamboo pole, so, I mean, it wasn't a huge part, but, we did that. Fast forwarding, I wanted to be an artist. Okay, that's what I wanted to be. Okay, and being a, PBS kid, geek, UNC TV geek, one of my favorite artists was was Bob with the Happy Little Clouds. Okay, and so I used to watch that religiously. All right, and but all through high school, that's what I did. I was going to be an artist, and I got a scholarship to East Carolina University, and I decided that I wasn't ready to do that. Now, before that, I spent a lot of time doing a lot of farm work. So, summertime, I worked in the tobacco field, we worked in the hay field, we dug sweet potatoes, this was like 13 and 16. That's what I did in the summer. So, that work ethic was already instilled in me, and I told myself, man, I need to do well because I do not want to do this for the rest of my life, but it's real salted enough work, and it kind of built something that I needed as I moved forward. After I got out of high school, I said, you know what, I need to do something different. I need to do something a bit rugged. So I joined the military, okay? And I took the first thing smoking. I was in a place where I just wanted to be on my own, and I joined the military, the best thing I could have done, because it got me mentally organized. It matured me, it gave me a lot of confidence, so I was 82nd Airborne, Air Assault, so I did all the gung-ho stuff and had a great time doing it. While I was in the military, outside of, what I was doing, I traveled a lot, and I think a lot of that also sparked the idea of what it meant for me to pursue a career in cooking. Now, I like to speak to the military kitchen because a lot of times it gets mislabeled and marginalized.
Hey, I'm Omar Zen. How you doing?
And
Good, good. Just listen to your message. So
okay, and I learned that in the military, one of the things I learned was service and consistency. At the end of the day, the soldiers were our customers, and a lot of times, particularly during combat situations, that was the only thing that would be a shining light to your day. It's a serious morale booster when you know that somebody's in there cooking your wholesome meal, knowing that your next mission may be something, extraordinary, So I learned a great deal in the military about what it means to cook for a lot of people, to cook in combat situations, in unsafe situations, and still deliver a wholesome product, and contrary to popular belief, military cooking recipes is not just, what you see on MASH or whatever like that, when somebody in line and slop food on the plate. It wasn't like that. We were definitely like what I would like to call cuisinaires. We spent time making sure that the food was cooked correctly and properly. So after being in the military for 7 years, one of my chief warrant officers, he told me, he said, look, if you plan to get out, if you want to pursue this, you should,
the new protocols of labor and delivery where they have.
You should make sure that you investigate the Culinary Institute of America. And I said, well, you know what, let me investigate it. So I did some research, and I had a fantastic time when I researched it, and I found out about the school was that the school was started by veterans, military folks coming back from World War II. That's how the school got started. So I was very intrigued by that. I felt sort of a kinship with that. So I was like, wow, so GI started one of the best cooking schools in the country. Okay, sort of people will call it the Harvard Cook Schools. So, I was inspired and fired up. So when I left the military, I already got accepted, and then my wife and I, Norma of 30 years, I got to say that, my wife been married for 30 years. We moved up there to upstate New York. She went to school and I went to CIA. And it was an invaluable experience. In the military, I knew how to cook things, but I didn't know the how and the why. So, when I went to school, I spent a ton of time in the library, and it was cold in upstate New York, and it was snowing all the time. So I spent hours on end reading, studying, understanding what styles of food are out there, the cuisine, techniques, chefs, their history. And after 2 years in the program, me and my wife moved down to the Washington D.C. area where she's from, and I started my career. And I worked in a lot of, the career path for what I wanted to do was all fine dining, high-end, higher echelon. So the majority of my experience has been that. So Michelin-starred restaurants, 4-star restaurants, spent time in New York City, San Francisco, Chicago, Paris, Singapore, and Germany. And, I immersed myself with cooking. It was really something that appealed to my creative nature. And I just found a love for it. And then I said, okay, I'm gonna pursue this. So I spent a lot of time working for free. When I got out of the military, I backpacked it across Europe, and I just started working in kitchens. The idea was that, you go work in a place, which is the terminology is called a stage or a stagiaire. That means you're apprentice in a place and you work for free. Okay, you do all the little extra work, you do all this stuff just to learn and be in that environment. So I spent a lot of time doing that. A lot of times, I was able to sustain and live because I had savings, but for me, it was part of the learning process. And for me, the knowledge was payment alone, because after I learned specific things, I was building sort of my culinary repertoire. What else can I say? I moved around the country for a bit, and then I decided to move back to North Carolina. So when I got back to North Carolina, I said, okay, I'm ready now. I'm in a place now where I want to start a business, and I didn't exactly know what I wanted to do, but I did know I did not want to invest in a restaurant that was what I've been doing, this high-end experience stuff. I wanted to do something that was a little bit more all-purpose, cast a broader net, if you will, and be mass appealing. So how did Saltbox start? It was just one of many sticky notes and ideas that I had. Okay, and when I found this specific location that was located in downtown Durham on Mangum Street, on a one-way road going into downtown Durham, I looked at it and I said, you know what? That's a fish joint. Okay, and so that started the ball rolling. All right, I didn't have a name for it. I didn't have anything, but what I did know is I can serve fish out of those windows. Now, the reference point to Saltbox came from a trip that I took when I went to Singapore. And when I went to Singapore, there's little eateries in that country that are called hawker stalls. And these are like an open air market where you have little small stalls, and people were like, 1 or 2 people would be working in them and producing wonderful food. So that was sort of the inspiration. And I ate so well when I was in Singapore. So I decided if I come back and find a little small place, that's what I wanted to do. And things happened, luck happened, and I found this place. And then I started to pursue it. I developed the logo. I developed the color palette. People ask me all the time, why Saltbox? Well, that idea came from me going to a hardware store, looking at a shed sort of catalog. And one of the sheds in there was called a Saltbox. And the reason why they call it a Saltbox because one of the roofs, one side is uneven. So one side of the roof is longer than the other. So that's a traditional Saltbox structure. So when I looked at this little spot on the side of the road, it looked like that. So that's why I called it Saltbox. I called it Saltbox Seafood Joint, joint meaning sort of a place in an urban setting, a little small walk-up place. A lot of folks want to define it as a shack. I wouldn't define it as a shack because it's a bit more polished, if you will. Okay, because I thought about, color palette and all that sort of thing. I spent 5 years working in the place by myself. Excuse me, let me rephrase that, not by myself. I still spent 5 years and I started the place by myself, but after 6 months, I could hire somebody. But the first 6 months, I did everything myself. And, things started happening, all of a sudden, lines started forming, and David will tell you this. I was in a place where I was so committed that I would never let anybody cook the food but me. So if I had an appointment to go to, or if I had to take my children to some sort of recital or football game, I would shut the place down. I was not confident in letting anybody cook, because at this point I was in the embryonic stages of building the brand. And I had garnered faith in the consumers as they came up to their window and learned what I was doing. Now, in the beginning, it was tough. I was in a specific neighborhood, and we're talking about, serving seafood. What I was doing, I'm thinking about doing things that are outside of the normal realm of what people have on menus. So I'm
just
serving
got
things
a
like,
small restaurant, small like takeout seafood kind of thing.
yes.
You'd love it. Tried it.
So I started serving things like sheep's head and butterfish and bluefish and mullet and all these sort of things that, you don't typically find in fish houses, because, typically what you get is this: flounder, oysters, shrimp, boom, hush puppy, slaw, that's it. But from my perspective, and for me being a chef, I'm thinking more along the lines of, the things that are species that people don't normally know, but it's abundant at our coast. And it's stuff I grew up eating, So I was putting things on the menu like I said, sheep's head and mullet, amberjack, spot, croaker, all those sort of things. Sugar toads, and people like, hey, where's the flounder? Where's the shrimp? Where's the oyster? I said, well, those are not in season. So I got a lot of pushback when I didn't have that traditional offering that folks are culturally conditioned to see. But as time went on, I tried to figure out what it means to inspire them to taste it, because I didn't want to come across like an elitist. I wanted them to slowly be lured into the idea that, okay, yeah, we have flounder when it's in season. We have shrimps when they're in season. But there's also some other offerings that are just as good. So try these. So one day I was so frustrated, I decided I need to come up with some sort of idea. And I said, I'm going to have a regular menu. I'm going to have a try me menu. And so the try me menu was slowly like this idea that, okay, those who already trust what I'm doing, maybe they'll try these things that they never tasted before. And all of a sudden, that idea worked out. And, people would come up and ask me for specific things they'd never even asked for. And then they'll come up to me and they know what's in season based on what I was serving. So, Saltbox has allowed me to indirectly educate my consumers, but also do the things I want to do. Fast forwarding, after 5 years, I was able to, have some level of success. I got a food truck as well. So I had Saltbox on wheels. I could do catering. And then there was an opportunity that came up that was pretty meaningful. And I had kind of put it out in the universe. There was a traditional restaurant here in Durham called the Shrimp Boat. Okay. And a lot of people grew up going to it. It's on 15501. And a lot of people who live here a long time, they talked about the neighborhood and how it changed, and there was a movie theater across the street. But I used to drive past it every time I went to my original location. I said, man, if that place ever became available, that would be the appropriate transition for my concept. And lo and behold, one day, as things aligned, okay, someone called me and said, hey, Chef Ricky, the owners of Shrimp Boat want to sell. I said, really? So I jumped on it, and pursued it. And after a year and a half build out, I opened up my second location December 19th, 2017. And I guess the rest is history, I guess. Well, I'm always trying to make history, but I found a wonderful, it was a great transition. People were connected to it. It wasn't disjointed. I spent a lot of time making sure that the inside was appropriate. I like to call it the decor that I did. I like to call it sort of like early fish house. Because if you go down to Hawker's Island, you'll see these fish houses, and a lot of them have apex frames, and they have wood on the walls, and they're boat builders, and they cure the boats in the ceiling. So this place, I was sort of blessed with that sort of structure. Now, my second location was built in 1969. Okay, so, and this Shrimp Boats was a 4-unit restaurant concept. And the one that I own now is the original blueprint. So from that one, they did all the others. So someone sent me a copy of the patent for the building of it, and I have it posted up in the restaurant right now. The pandemic, I was absolutely terrified, good people. Okay, as a restaurant person who has been in the business for 30 years, I understand the economics of the restaurant. I understand the tight margins. I understand what it means to, sustain a restaurant business, because a lot of times you're only working on, seasonal business, the ebbs and flows of it. You know when you're going to be busy, you know you're going to be slow, so you plan accordingly. But this kind of threw me for a loop. I couldn't get no sleep for at least a week. I was unsettled. I was nervous, and it really concerned me. And I sat back and I thought about it, and I prayed on it a little bit. And I said, oh, wait a minute. Okay. We're just going to adjust here. Okay. We're going to adjust. I had to obviously let some of my people go. And we had to get back down to a core team. And these are trusted people that have been working with me the longest. So those are the people that, we stayed in there and we just made adjustments, and just like everybody else did. But the one thing that I started to realize is that both of my concepts, or both of my locations, were sort of like COVID-centric, if you will, because, at my original location, my picnic tables were already 6 feet apart. There was already a barrier. You walked up to a window, so there's already a barrier there. So I was already COVID-19 centric. Now, for my second location, all we did was to go. But still, my food was engineered for that anyway. So all I did was do what I was required to do per what the state said. And, we made adjustments. And one of the real challenges for me was that it was hard to get seafood. Okay, you start telling yourself, well, I'm the only one going through this. No, everybody else around you. So you got fishermen who are catching a ton of fish and they can't get it to people, and it's sitting in this, so it was a challenge. That was what was driving me nuts, because, my concept is based off of local seafood, not frozen boxes of stuff hanging out. So I was in a panic mode. But like I said before, I prayed about it, and I said, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do this. We're going to cut the menu down. Okay, we're going to open these amount of hours. Okay, on Sundays, I'm going to do something a little bit different. So the gentleman, his name is Steve. He owns a seafood company called Salty Cat Seafood in Beaufort. Steve is a 4th-generation fisherman. And Steve was selling his raw product at the Durham Farmers Market. And during that time, everything was, so crazy, he didn't have a spot anymore. And him and I talked. I said, yo, Steve, you can come and bring your product to my parking lot, okay, on Sunday. All right. And if you were to bring me some fish, I would cook that fish on the other side of the parking lot. So we have our distancing happening. You say your raw product, I'm going to put some fish in a cauldron, and I'm going to sell quarts of fish stew. So I did that so that me and my colleague can sustain. And we did it every Sunday, okay? And people knew my spot, and people knew of him at the market. So it was a perfect synergy, So they would go over there and get, 2 pounds of shrimp or whatever, and they don't come over me, and I had made fresh hot chowder from tile fish or something like that. So it was a beautiful thing, And so I was doing little stuff like that to really sustain. I fed the children. I was assigned to a school, and in order to generate some revenue, it wasn't a lot, but it was all right, and it was enough. I used to make seafood dishes in a quart, and good people. It was important to me that I delivered the same product that I deliver in the restaurant. So these children ate really stellar seafood dishes. Okay, this was not about, oh, let me just throw some rice together and put a couple of shrimp in it. No. I'm pretty sure that the parents were like elated when they got it. I didn't care whether or not the kids liked it or not. That wasn't the point. The point is that I wanted to make sure that even if they tasted it, maybe they just maybe inspired some of them, but I'm pretty sure the parents loved it. I did a lot of to-go meals, TV dinners. I just kind of came out of the box with ideas, because I'm that type of person that there's no excuse. There's nothing to fall back on. I have to get it done. I have to think about what I am and who I am, and translate it to my consumers. And luckily, and I'll say this, when I talk and have conversations in PR meetings, I always say, and some people may get taken aback, but I'm not interested in being a internationally known all the time, or just in general. But I want to be known as locally, because the truth be told, local neighborhood people sustain Saltbox. I don't know about anybody else, but nobody was traveling. Nobody was doing anything extra. It was the neighborhood people, the surrounding people in the region, Durham, Chapel Hill, Raleigh, who sustained the business. So I always say I'd rather be a rock star in my neighborhood as opposed to a rock star outside of it. So, I always share that with people, because, a restaurant is part of a neighborhood. It's part of a community. And I try to make sure that I create that sort of idea, or sort of anchor myself as such. In 2020, to be very honest, it was a blessing that I was able to sustain. I was able to hire more people. I was able to, start working on some other things. And I guess here we are. Okay. I don't know. Is there any questions or thoughts or ideas anybody want to chime in with? I'm willing to have some.
Ricky, that's excellent. We're grateful for you sharing that story. That's an inspiring story of perseverance through COVID. I'm gonna tell you, I'm a huge fan of your place. You guys crank out some excellent food.
Thank you.
And I know that a number of our members feel the same way. We would love to entertain some questions, and our group is pretty commonly has some good questions.
Okay.
If you want to raise your hand or use the chat, we can do that, folks. I see Bill Blackman has a question.
Okay, I'm listening.
Yes, thank you, Ricky. A couple things. I'm from Greensboro, but I put in tobacco down there in a place called Fremont.
Yeah.
First question I want to know: did you get hot in that tobacco field?
Man, please. Look, my grandmama wrapped me up in so much stuff to make sure I stay cool. Look, I like I said, I was just happy to make some money for myself as a kid, but I was during a time where they were doing it on foot, bent over, walking down rows, throwing it up their arm. I went, huh?
Me too. I'm only way to do it, hanging it in barns. Well, I got the second question for you. So
Go ahead.
else can ask you a question. Now, since you're a tobacco man, I expect you to tell me the truth. I want you to see the secret formula, and I say this with due respect.
Yeah.
How do you make mullet taste good?
How do you make mullet taste good? Smoke it.
How do you do that?
Smoke it.
Smoke it?
Yep. You know why? Here's the thing.
I don't know why.
Okay, here we go. I'm gonna share it with you. A lot of people take oily, assertive fish. We're culturally conditioned to eat mild white fish. So for me, when I think about an oily fish, I think about being rich and decadent. So what do I do to minimize that idea that people like, I don't want no, they use the term fishy fish, which is, I'd rather them not use that, but I understand. But you take something like that and you, when you smoke it, you kind of manage that a bit. You know what I mean? Smoked mackerel, smoked mullet, all oily fish in my mind, if you preserve it, even like things like herring. A lot of folks, reference herring as salt herring. They never had fresh herring. But the reason why they salt it, well, it's probably a lot of history, but oily fish, I like to smoke them or preserve them.
When you say you smoke it, what do you smoke it over? Do you put any particular, or is this a charcoal thing you smoke it, or are you doing it in the paint? How are you doing it?
Well, I mean, a typical, I'll put a basic, I do a basic brine, okay, and I'll put a rub on it and I'll smoke it over hickory. Now, yeah, but also, let me share this with you. I'm very, part of writing that book was to start the conversation about regional Eastern Carolina seafood cookery, the same way people talk about it in, Maryland with crabs or South Carolina with shrimp and grits. There's regional dishes like charcoal mullet.
Right.
Now that's a very, very traditional thing. Certain families do that, but it's very regional to us.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Ricky, we got another question from one of our members, Linda Sanders.
Hey,
Hey,
Rick.
Linda.
Hi, Ricky. Hey, thank you very much. This was wonderful stories. And I'll tell you, those lucky school kids, I wish I had been one of those school kids who so enjoyed the lunches that you were providing. My question is, what advice would you give to a young person who's interested in becoming a chef like yourself?
Oh, wow. I would say that, first of all, define what area of the hospitality business you want to be in, because, obviously I'm a chef by title, but I'm in the hospitality business. I'm in the business of making people happy, technically. So I would ask them to define what part of the business that appeals to your personality. Real important, because being a cook, being a chef is hard work, and it requires stamina, physical and mental. So for me, it's important that they define which area they go into, because there's so many different areas. Now, a chef can work in a lot of different environments too, tons of different environments. You don't have to be just in a hardcore Michelin-starred restaurant. You can work in a hospital. You can work in a college. So there's different environments that a chef could go and work into. So I would tell them first, define what they want to do. And if they're not clear about it, then take the traditional approach and learn from solid leaders and professionals. That's what I would say.
Great. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry.
We've got another question from Bill's iPad. I don't know who's Bill that is. Is that Bill Bolin?
I'm
Bill,
sorry.
Bill, I think you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Got you now. Yes.
Okay, Ricky,
Yes, sir.
can you hear me?
I can.
Look, I'm your neighbor, man, right around the street. Would you think about doing something in the neighborhood? We should do something like this.
Bill,
A fish fry.
you know what, Bill? You know what? A lot of people we've been talking about that for years. Okay.
Yeah.
We have been talking about, yes, I would. Yes, I would.
Right down the street, or right, your neighbors next door. I see them every day. So I see your kids. You always out working. So anyway, I'll talk to you about it. But thank you. That'd be great.
No. Karen and I talk about that all the time.
Well, I'll see her today. I'll tell her I'll talk to you. We'll set it up.
Bill, we
we
want an invite.
Okay.
All right. Let it to Ricky. Leave it up to Ricky.
Awesome, Bill. Good to see you, man.
Good to see you.
Yeah, we all want to come after hearing all that. You better have all of us. You shouldn't have said that out loud.
We just opened it up, Bill. We just opened it up, have a good old fish fry.
Charlie Harrison's. We'll do it. We'll do
Bill,
it.
you're going to play music.
I'll do it.
Okay.
You got
Absolutely.
So,
Well, folks, it's 2:00. Ricky, I want to thank you. That was fantastic. That was a great program. Great
Thank you.
stories,
Appreciate you.
inspiring history. And I can can speak personally. I'm a big fan of your businesses and proud of what you're doing. So keep up the great work. And we're grateful for you joining us today and sharing your time. So
Thank you.
thank you. And I want to wish everybody a happy and safe weekend. Be safe out there. And we'll look forward to seeing each other again in about a week.